Well, here we are, falling chronically behind on our tasks. But for some reason, I actually can't focus on this book. If you stay till the end of this video, I am not only revealing the title of this novella, but I'm also revealing the cover of the novella. Welcome to another writing vlog. This week we are editing my novella. My novella is actually supposed to come out next month. So we'll see what happens. The goal is that it comes out mid-May, end of May. So let's just see. This week we're doing the last bit of developmental editing to the novella before I send it off for copy edits. It just was with beta readers. I've peeked at it quickly, but I haven't sorted through it a ton, but I'm pleasantly surprised by the feedback, let's put it that way. So the way I work with beta readers is they read a certain amount of the manuscript, and when they get to that end of that section, there's a Google form, and they click on the Google form and they fill out the Google form to give feedback. And typically when I have a novel, it's like 5 chapters at a time, but because this is a novella, I think it only has 10 chapters, so that meant there were only 2 Google forms that they filled out. They have a Google form that they filled out for the halfway point, and then there's a Google form they filled out for the end of the book. So I'm gonna have to organize their feedback that way, and also just figure things out from there. Okay, I've officially gone through all the feedback. The good news is that the second half of the novella is great. The bad news is that the first half of the novella is a little rough. So behind me we have all the notes that I took, and you can see I color-coded them, and they're also in categories. I have my Google response forms on one screen and the beta feedback notes on the other screen. And they're categorized by scenes to fix, Wes notes, Kara notes, Brandy notes, Evan notes, and notes on chapter 1, because that is apparently the most rough chapter. And then also another chapter is pretty rough, but it didn't get its own category. But yellow means they're little things, little fixes. Green is like things that my beta reader told me and was like, this is really good, make sure you keep this, and I wrote it down just in case, like, during edits I accidentally removed it. I didn't want to remove it. If it doesn't have a color, it's just like a note from a beta reader. Like, one of them was my beta reader seeing that Wes is a golden retriever, Wes is a people pleaser, and these are like things that I didn't quite notice myself, and I wanted to write down for like marketing purposes. Orange is like stuff that should be easy-ish to fix, but require like a decent bit of work. Red, there's a couple of red ones. They mean they're pretty big issues that really need to be fixed and will probably require a lot of, or not a lot, but like a decent amount of rewriting and probably some brainstorming on my part. And then blue is like an idea, like just a new plot point, or just an idea for a solution to fix something. But I'm probably going to take a break or maybe do some brainstorming and then return to editing tonight. I do still intend on finishing this week, but we will see, because I really want to keep the novella on track, and I have to figure out like a copy editor situation as well, because I actually don't have an editor picked out, and the copy editor that I really like is currently working on my other book. So I have this novella, and then I also have the first book in the series. The novella is a companion to the series, to kind of introduce people into the series, which it does a really good job of. Like, everyone, all my beta readers said that. They were like, oh, I see what you're doing here. You're setting up readers for your writing style and the concept of the series, which is just people falling in love to places they fly to. The novella is about a flight attendant and a pilot, whereas all the other books are going to be about like traveling to specific places. So it's like a fun dip into the world of like falling in love while you're traveling. But yeah, so I'm very excited for it, which is good, because the last time I was working on this, I almost scrapped the story entirely. So we're making progress. Okay, so every single red note in my file here that is basically like a huge plot issue, I was able to resolve with adding one more chapter at the beginning. So the current first chapter of the book is actually going to be now the second chapter of the book, and I'm adding a new first chapter of the book. Because really the issue is there was this big chunk of backstory that was needed. And rather than just telling the readers the backstory, I'm actually going to show the backstory, which I'm not a huge fan of, because essentially what's going to happen is we show the backstory and then we're going to jump to 3 months later. Now, I'm not a big fan of doing time jumps like that, but it's either do a time jump or just unload a lot of this backstory to the reader in a very boring way. And I think everyone, myself included, would prefer that we actually live out the scene rather than be told the scene. And speaking of which, it's going to be a very fun scene to write. There is a significant amount of drama, and I do think that drama will make it very interesting for the first chapter. And then the original first chapter, which will now be the second chapter, is even more drama. So I think it will improve the story a lot. Now, this additional backstory will require a bunch of rewriting, but not only will this rewriting solve the red notes in here, but they will also solve a lot of these orange notes and yellow notes, which really is just a win-win all around. So I've done no actual editing today, but I've fleshed out a ton of backstory. I feel very accomplished today. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to sit down and figure out what I want to edit on what days so I can see if we can actually finish this by the end of the week. I have a pretty rough editing schedule. Most of the rewrites are going to get done tomorrow, and then a little bit on Wednesday as well, and then the rest of them should be pretty smooth sailing, just going through the chapters. But I wanted to choose stickers to track my editing, and earlier this month I was using the open book editing stickers, and that was when I was editing book 1 in the Flying in Love series. And now that I'm editing the novella, but it's in the same month, I would actually rather use a different sticker, so I'm going to use the notebook editing sticker instead to track everything, because it's more fun to have it be different stickers. Well, here we are, falling chronically behind on our tasks. I'm very behind. My daughter's been down for a nap for almost an hour, but I've been doing all this boring admin stuff, and now I'm gonna write, and hopefully, yeah. Supposedly the edits will get easier the farther into the story I get. It's really just those first couple chapters that are really hard. But for some reason, I actually can't focus on this book. I don't know what it is about this book, because I'm enjoying the book now, but my eyes cannot focus on this screen. And when they are, I lose my place all the time, and that doesn't normally happen for me. I don't know why it's happening for this book in particular, though. It's driving me up the wall. I swear to you, I'm really liking the story now. It's just I don't know. My brain says nope, it doesn't want to work on it. I'm making a ton of progress, but literally as I'm writing, I'm making notes in the comment section feature that Word has of things that I have to go back to and fix, which I think is part of my problem, is that I kept getting lost in my manuscript, because as I'm writing, I'm thinking of ideas for other scenes that are earlier in the book, and I scroll back to earlier, and then I come back, and I have a really hard time staying in the scene because I keep jumping back and forth like this, and it is improving the story. It's just really inefficient way of editing. So instead of doing that, I've been just steaming forward with my edits and staying in my current chapter, but then writing the comments in the margins of Word, being this is what I need to go back and edit later. So yeah, I have to. So even though I'm on chapter 6 right now, which is technically halfway through the story, I wouldn't consider myself halfway done because I have to go back and re-edit the other chapters again. So it's a couple days later. I did end up finishing my novella editing. I finished it on Sunday night, I think. So I didn't finish it on Friday like I wanted to, but I did finish it on Sunday. And then after that, I felt so chaotic about all the rewrites that I did that I went back and reread the entire manuscript. Really, I only really needed to do it to the first half of the manuscript because the second half I didn't end up needing to change anything. But I didn't realize how much of an overhaul the entire story needed. Like, the premise is more or less still the same, but all the details changed. So much so that I actually need to rewrite my blurb now. So I wrote a blurb, and I actually had my beta readers give feedback on the blurb, which was incredibly helpful. But now, because I rewrote things so much, the blurb is very different. So I'm now with a blurb that doesn't have feedback again. But I'm feeling really good about this story now. Like, it's funny how when you're writing a first draft, you can kind of sense that things are off, but you kind of just ignore it because you're like, oh, to figure out how to make this work would be a lot of work. And you just kind of push it under the rug until other people point it out. Then you're like, okay, I have to address this. And now I'm just really satisfied with the entire story. I think as a novella, it stands really strong. I feel like it's really hard to write a good novella because you want to have the same depth as like a regular novel, but you just don't have enough pages to do that. So really, this story only takes place over the course of 24 hours. There's one scene at the very beginning where like we have a scene and then it jumps to 3 months later, but then that 3 months later is over the course of 24 hours. And I feel like that's the only way to make a novella work, is that you have it over a really short period of time, so that during that short period of time you can give it all the attention it needs. At the beginning of this video, I mentioned that if you stuck around until the end, I would reveal the title and the cover of the book. So without further ado, here it is. The illustrator that did this cover is the same illustrator that did my other covers for the Trail to You and Me, Meet Me at the Summit, Let the Rebel Fall. He did the illustrations. He gives me a ton of creative control, which I greatly appreciate. And then I go ahead and open up the illustration in Photoshop and tweak it a little bit and move things around a little bit. And then I add in the typography, and I'm just so happy with the result. Now, this novella is going to be free to download. So with that said, there's no pre-order link, but it's going to be free to all my newsletter subscribers. And that is newsletter subscribers for my author newsletter, Mandi Lynn Bell, which is different from my YouTube newsletter, which is just Mandi Lynn, and it's where I release all my nonfiction stuff. This is a separate newsletter. So essentially, I feel like I'm kind of relaunching my author career for my fiction books, and this is my way of doing it by offering this novella for free. I want you guys to get a taste of my new writing style, my new storytelling style, and I just want it to appeal to romance readers. If you're not a romance reader, then don't bother downloading it. You won't like it. But if you do like sweet romance, closed door romance, this book is for you. But yeah, if you subscribe to my newsletter, you will be notified when this is available to download. Otherwise, when it is released, I will be sharing a link to download that as well, and talking about the impacts of that and how I'm using that to grow my author newsletter. Now, this means we are also one step closer to releasing my Iceland book. So this novella is a part of the Flying in Love book series, and the first book in the series is going to release late this summer or early fall, and it's going to be released as a Kickstarter. So if you want to keep tabs on when when the Kickstarter is going to be happening, make sure to visit the Kickstarter page and hit notify me of project. And I can tell you right now, one of the fun perks that I will have for the Kickstarter is that you can purchase a paperback edition of this novella. And I'm so excited that we're going to have a paperback of the novella. I think for me as an author, I just want to physically hold it in my hand, and I hope you guys are excited to hold it in your hands as well. But of course, the ebook is free. The paperback will be part of the Kickstarter, as well as many other fun perks for the Kickstarter. And I will share all of that information here on YouTube as it happens. Oh my god, I almost forgot to add, the original title of the novella was not Change of Flight. It was a much more cringy title. And my beta readers were all just like, yeah, this title kind of sucks. So I came up with a much better one. Thank you so much, my beta readers, for knocking some sense into me. Because, yeah, we're not even going to say what it was. It was that bad. Anyways, that is it for this video. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe.